The phone screen lit the room in cold blue. Blessing lay on her stomach, legs kicked up behind her, bare feet swaying like they still believed in somewhere to run. The Lekki night was thick outside the window, generator hum from a neighbor, somewhere a dog, the distant complaint of traffic on the express. Inside, just the slow ceiling fan chopping the same warm air over and over, and the glow of a screen that wouldn't let her rest. 28 had never felt this heavy before. She refreshed the post again. A carousel she'd spent 3 hours shooting, the Balenciaga slides, the iced coffee, the particular tilt of her chin she'd learned made her jaw look sharper. Caption she'd rewritten 4 times before landing on living my best life regardless. The word regardless doing all the real work, carrying everything she wasn't saying. The post had barely crossed 2,000 likes. The algorithm had decided she wasn't interesting enough today, and the algorithm didn't care that she was tired. The hospital statement was still pinned at the top of her notifications. 3.2 million Nigerian nairas. A koi private hospital letterhead, the kind of formal font that turns grief into arithmetic. Her mother had been gone 6 weeks and the bill was still here, still growing with whatever they called carrying charges, still waiting on her like a debt doesn't know how to do anything else. She'd paid the first 2 installments the only way she knew how, sponsored content, a few brand deals beneath her usual rate, and what she privately called girlfriend loans, money sent by followers who believed the version of her life she performed daily. The performance was getting harder to hold. She moved to statuses first. Girls she knew, some she'd grown up with, most she'd only ever met in comment sections, posting club receipts and new wigs and resort photos, Santorini and Dubai and the Maldives, places Blessing had been to herself not so long ago when the numbers made sense. She watched the stories pass without reacting to any of them. Then the DMs. Thirst, as always urgent and misspelled. A skincare brand offering 40,000 naira for a post, which was almost insulting. A podcast invite. Someone asking if she had a manager. The usual small noise of a life half public. And then the other one. The account had no picture, just a gray default silhouette that meant either fresh or deliberately blank. No followers, no following. Created that same week. The name was at Elite Patron NG, which told her nothing and everything. The message was surprisingly short. Almost polite. Asterisk Nigerian naira 50 million. One night. Total submission to a forbidden urge. No violence. Total discretion. For a private Abuja archive. Asterisk. She read it again. Then once more, slowly, the way you read something when part of you is hoping the words will rearrange themselves into something less. They didn't. She laughed, one sharp sound, disbelief more than amusement, and immediately sent a voice note to Temi. Asterisk. Girl, see what in person send me. 50 million to do one nonsense. These men don mad finish. Asterisk. Temi replied in under a minute, laughing emojis tumbling in first then, asterisk block and share. Nah scam. Or ritual. Either way, delete. Asterisk. Blessing kept staring. 50 million naira. She let herself do the math she'd been avoiding all week. The hospital balance cleared. The estate lawyer who kept calling about signatures and outstanding fees settled. The apartment whose rent she'd been floating on grace and charm and promises to herself, secured for another year. The breathing room she had slowly, piece by piece, month by month, traded away since the diagnosis, since the hospital visits, since she'd quietly become a daughter first and an influencer second and herself somewhere much further down the list. All of it. Gone. One night. She pressed block. Watched the account disappear the way things do on a screen, clean, instant, no residue. She counted to 10. Maybe 15. Her thumb moved without permission and reversed it. The chat came back like it had never left. Like it had simply been waiting on the other side of a door she'd been standing in front of for longer than tonight. She started typing before the wiser part of her could find the right words to stop it. Send proof of funds first. She hit send and dropped the phone onto the duvet, the way you drop something that has surprised you with its heat. The generator outside chose that moment to cough once, twice, and give out entirely. The room went darker. The blue light died. Only the fan kept going, slow and indifferent, turning the same hot air across the back of her legs, the back of her neck, the place between her shoulder blades where tension had been living for months. She lay still in the new dark. Didn't reach for the phone. But didn't turn it over either. Didn't push it away or slide it off the bed or do any of the small physical things that would have meant something. It sat there beside her, screen dark now, waiting the same way she was. The phone buzzed against her thigh somewhere in the middle of third mainland traffic, the kind of standstill where engines tick and people sell groundnuts between lanes and the whole city seems to be breathing through its mouth. Blessing looked down without picking it up. Same gray silhouette, same handle. No greeting this time, just an attachment. She opened it in the half-light of passing headlights. A bank alert screenshot, the kind her Opay app sent in that familiar green and white. 5 million Nigerian nairas credited. 23 minutes ago. Reference line reading simply, good faith. No sender name. No reversal flag. Nothing that looked like a setup. Her thumb saved the image before her mind had finished deciding whether to. The next message came almost immediately. Abuja. This weekend. First flight Saturday morning. Driver will meet you at arrivals. Name card patron. Do not speak to anyone else. She sat with those words while traffic inched forward around her. The danfo behind her honked. She eased off the brake, moved with the slow river of cars, and didn't look at the phone again for the rest of the drive. But the air inside the car had changed, thinner somehow, the way air gets when something real is happening. She booked the ticket that night. Cheapest return on air piece, the kind of fare you buy when you haven't decided yet if you're coming back changed or just coming back. She packed light and deliberately. Black jeans, a clean shirt, heels she'd chosen for their ankle strap, the kind you could move fast in if the night asked you to. One small carry-on. No checked bag, nothing that said she planned to stay. She told only Temi. Temi sent 3 crying emojis and a voice note. You sure? Like really sure? Blessing listened to it twice. Didn't reply. Kept folding. The driver was exactly where the message said he'd be, standing just past the arrivals barrier with the stillness of someone paid to wait without fidgeting. Tall, charcoal suit, a plain white card held at chest height with patron written in neat black ink, no flourish, no extra words. He didn't speak when she approached. Opened the back door of a black G-Wagon and stood aside. That was all. The leather was cold against the backs of her thighs when she settled in. She'd worn a slip dress, thin straps, the hem sitting above the knee, and she felt the chill of the seat against her skin like a small reminder that her body was still present in all of this. The driver moved through Abuja's broad, unhurried streets, past the floodlit faces of embassies, past high walls wearing coils of razor wire like jewelry, past roundabouts so clean they looked decorative. The city had a different grammar from Lagos. More space between things. More silence between words. Maitama opened up ahead, and the driver turned through gates that swung without him stopping. The house was low and wide, glass and pale stone, the kind of building that didn't need to announce itself. The lights inside were kept low, not dim enough to feel unwelcoming, just intimate enough to feel deliberate, like a room that had been arranged for something. Fatima Yusuf was waiting at the entrance. She was somewhere in her 40s, the kind of 40s that looks considered, silk kaftan the deep color of crude oil just before light hits it, geli wrapped so cleanly it seemed structural rather than draped. Her English carried the north in its mouth without apology, and her smile was small and practiced, the kind built over years of smoothing things that needed smoothing in rooms where things didn't officially happen. Welcome, Blessing. She said the name like she'd said it before, privately, to herself. Come inside. The corridors were polished underfoot, lit along the lower walls in amber, smelling of oud and the specific kind of quiet that money buys. Fatima walked without hurry and spoke the same way. Titan was a Rottweiler. Male. 3 years old. Full health records, professionally trained, responsive to command. She could stop at any point. The balance would transfer the moment it was done. Nothing further would be required. She said it the way a doctor reads discharge instructions, thorough, calm, stripped of the weight the words actually carried. In a side room lined with dark wood panels, she handed Blessing an iPad. The NDA was 3 screens long. No names. No descriptions of what had happened or what would. Breach carried consequences that the document described with enough specificity to be believed. Blessing's nails, fresh coffin acrylics, deep burgundy, done 2 days ago as if she'd known she was preparing for something, tapped against the glass screen. Once. Twice. She pressed accept. The screen turned green. The guest suite was marble and cool air, and the smell of fresh linen. Blessing's sandals made almost no sound crossing the floor. On the bed, folded neatly, was a set of black lingerie. Sheer, the kind that costs enough to feel like a considered choice rather than an afterthought. A bralette that offered more frame than cover, and briefs cut high enough to make her legs look like they started somewhere above where they actually did. Tags still attached. Her size, which meant someone had looked at her carefully, or known someone who had. Asterisk change here. Someone will come for you shortly. Asterisk. The door closed behind Fatima with a sound so soft it was almost nothing. Blessing stood in the middle of the room and let the quiet settle. Then she reached behind her neck and undid the clasp of her dress. Let it fall. Stepped out of it and stood in the cool room in just her skin for a moment, the air moving lightly against her, tracing the curve of her waist, the soft weight of her breasts, the inside of her wrists. She hadn't been touched in months. Not meaningfully. And the air seemed to know that, or at least it didn't pretend otherwise. She picked up the lingerie. The fabric was almost nothing between her fingers. She stepped into the briefs first, felt the silk settle against her hips, the high cut leaving the length of her thighs entirely bare. The bralette followed, thin straps, sheer cups, her nipples visible through the fabric like a thought you can't quite hide. She reached back and fastened it, and then stood still, feeling the specific exposure of being dressed in something that was technically clothing. Then she looked up. Her reflection filled the full-length mirror across the room. Eyes wider than usual. Lips slightly parted. Chest moving too quickly, each breath shallower than the last. Not fear exactly, but something that shared a border with it. The black silk against her brown skin was stark and deliberate. She looked like someone in the middle of a decision they'd already made but hadn't finished arriving at. Then something else caught her eye. In the ornate ceiling roses above her, the carved plaster kind that colonial architecture left behind and money preserved, small red lights sat blinking steadily. 3 of them, maybe 4. Not hidden behind anything. Not obvious either, unless you were looking up, unless you were the kind of person who checked. She exhaled once, the breath coming out sharper than she intended. Security, she said, to the empty room, to the ceiling, to whoever or whatever was watching the feed. Like big men do. The words floated up and stayed there, as thin and transparent as the silk against her thighs. She turned away from the mirror. Faced the door. Stood with her weight balanced and her arms loose at her sides, listening for the footsteps that hadn't come yet, feeling the cold marble through her bare feet, feeling the particular aliveness that comes from having crossed a line you can still see from where you're standing. She waited. The warmth of Titan's body anchored her to the floor, marble cold beneath her knees but forgotten now. She had started slow, fingers tracing the ridge of his ribs, palm flat against the heat of his flank, testing, telling herself this was still calculation, still survival. But Titan answered in ways no script had prepared her for. His tongue returned, deliberate laps along the inside of her thigh, rough silk dragging sparks up nerves she'd long buried. Each pass pulled a sound from her throat she didn't recognize, small, involuntary, rising. Shame arrived first as fire in her cheeks, then lower, twisting into something else. The burn didn't fade, it spread. Her hips shifted forward without permission, seeking the rhythm he set. She arched once, spine curving like a bow drawn tight, breath slicing sharp against the incense-thick air. The lingerie had ridden up, useless now, sheer fabric bunched at her waist. Titan pressed closer, weight and warmth and insistence, his responses so perfectly trained they felt almost cruel in their precision. She lost track of minutes. The room narrowed to skin and breath, and a low rumble in his chest when she gripped his scruff harder. Her free hand slid down her own body, tentative at first, then greedy, mirroring, amplifying, chasing the edge that kept receding. Heat coiled tighter, reckless, intoxicating, drowning the last thin thread of revulsion until only hunger remained. Then she looked up. Red lights. Not 1. 4, 5, scattered among the shadows of the ceiling coffers, the gilt edges of wall sconces, the seam where marble met plaster. Steady blinks, patient, recording. The knowledge landed cold and sudden, like swallowing Gary without water. This wasn't private. Never had been. Somewhere, Abuja drawing rooms, locked server rooms, dollar-stacked offshore accounts, men in Agbadas and Seville rose suits were watching. Paying. Collecting. Her body stilled. Fingers tangled deep in Titan's collar, knuckles white. She stared straight into the nearest lens, the one directly above, red eye unblinking. Her lips parted. "Una day watch me so?" The words came low, husky, edged with Lagos steel. She tilted her head, slow, deliberate. "Okay, make una see proper." The sentence hung there, a challenge thrown into the dark. Titan shifted beneath her touch, sensing the change, but she didn't release him. Her gaze stayed locked on the light. Waiting, the red lights held her gaze like fingers on her throat, steady, patient, waiting for her to break. Instead, Blessing smiled, small, sharp, the same one she used in club bathrooms when a man thought he could corner her. She didn't run. She didn't cover herself. She leaned forward, slow, deliberate, letting the silk fall completely away like shed skin. Titan shifted beneath her, sensing the change, but stayed close, his heat a solid wall against her side. She spoke first to him, low, almost tender. "Easy, big boy." Then lifted her chin to the ceiling, to the lenses, to the men she couldn't see but could feel watching. "This one nah for the big men in Aso Rock, ABI?" Her voice carried clear, laced with Lagos edge. "Una money sweet pass honey, but my body's sweeter. Una fit pay dollars, but una no fit touch this." She moved then, not frantic, not pleading, but owned. Every arch of her back, every roll of her hips, every gasp she allowed to escape was measured, gifted, weaponized. She fed them the fantasy they paid for, but she set the tempo, controlled the frame. Her fingers tangled deeper in Titan's fur, guiding, claiming, turning surrender into spectacle. Shame had burned out. What remained was fire, clean and bright. She laughed once, breathless, triumphant, when the rush peaked again, sharper this time, her body bowing like a wave cresting marble. When the last tremor left her, she collapsed beside Titan, chest heaving, skin slick with sweat that caught the low light. Titan panted softly, tongue lolling, content in the way only animals can be, without judgment, without agenda. She reached out, stroked his flank once, slow. The door opened without knock. Fatima stepped in, kaftan whispering against the floor, face as smooth as the marble underfoot. No shock. No disgust. Just calm appraisal. "They're impressed," she said. "Transfer complete." Blessing pushed herself up on one elbow, hair falling across her face in damp strands. She wiped sweat from her brow with the back of her hand, then met Fatima's eyes. A thin smile curved her lips. "Now tell me who they be." Her voice was quiet, almost conversational. "Senators? Ministers? Or the ones way they hide behind protocol officers like you?" Fatima's eyes flickered, just once, a tiny crack in the composure she wore like armor. Blessing felt it land, that shift, electric and final. She was no longer just prey. She was the one asking questions now. The flight back to Lagos felt shorter than it should have, as if the plane had skipped time just to deposit her faster into the familiar chaos. Blessing unlocked her apartment door at dusk, the AC kicking on with a tired sigh as she stepped inside. Lekki traffic still hummed faintly through the window, horns and Okada engines bleeding into the quiet. She dropped her bag by the couch, kicked off her heels, and pulled out her phone before the door even clicked shut. Opayap. Balance refresh. 50 million Nigerian nairas stared back at her. No memo, no sender tag, just the number sitting there like it had always belonged. Clean. Cold. She stared until the screen dimmed, then tapped it awake again, as if the digits might vanish if she blinked. She didn't celebrate. Didn't dance around the living room or screenshot it for Temi. Instead she sat cross-legged on the rug, phone in one hand, the other pressed flat against her chest where her heart refused to settle. Then she began to dig. First, mental snapshots. The ceiling lights, the marble grain under her knees, Titan's collar tag glinting once in the low light. She opened Google reverse image search anyway, feeding it blurry selfies she'd taken in the sweet mirror before everything started. Nothing matched, but the exercise steadied her hands. Next, Narrowland. Threads buried under politics and romance sections, whispers about Abuja specials, coded language for things money could buy when power got bored. She scrolled deeper, switching to anonymous burners on X, old handles she'd followed for gossip, the kind that posted grainy clips from private jets and hotel lobbies. Telegram was worse. Encrypted groups with names like Niger Elite Drops and Maitama Nights. She joined 3 using throwaway numbers, lurked for an hour. Then she saw it. Maitama Archives. The phrase appeared in a pinned message, followed by a link to a private channel. No previews. Just a warning, high entry. Higher stakes. She requested access with a burner account. Approved in minutes. Inside screenshots. Audio snippets. Blurred stills from nights like hers. And then, hers. Grainy, taken from an angle high above. Her face partially pixelated, but the curve of her jaw, the fall of her braids, the burgundy nails gripping black fur, anyone who scrolled her IG stories would know. The caption read only, *fresh drop. Abuja Circle exclusive. Nigerian naira equivalent in dollars paid. Her thumb froze over the screen. The money in her account suddenly felt heavier, like coins sewn into the lining of her skin. Not salvation. Evidence. Proof she'd sold a piece of herself that could be screenshot, shared, weaponized. Her brand, the curated glow, the sponsored posts, the boss babe captions, built on illusion. One clear frame and it crumbled. She locked the phone. Set it face down on the rug. Her pulse thundered in her ears, loud enough to drown the distant generator hum. Blood money. The phrase lodged in her throat like a stone she couldn't swallow. She stayed there, unmoving, staring at the black screen as if it might speak first. It didn't. But the silence did, thick, accusing, promising more to come. The message went out at 2:17 a.m., Lagos time, while the city still thrummed below her balcony lights. Simple. Direct. We need to talk. Face to face. Tomorrow. Was. That gallery on Aminukano Crescent. After closing. Don't make me wait. Fatima's reply came 43 minutes later. One word agreed. The gallery smelled of fresh varnish and money when Blessing stepped inside after hours, the security guard nodding once before vanishing into the shadows. Spotlights were dimmed to half, leaving the abstract canvases, bold slashes of red and black, looking like open wounds on white walls. Fatima waited near the centerpiece, a massive sculpture of twisted bronze that caught the low light like a cage. She wore the same midnight kaftan, or one just like it, as if she never changed out of the role. Blessing didn't sit. She stood 10 paces away, arms loose at her sides, nails still burgundy but chipped now from nervous picking on the flight back. Fatima spoke first. They're offering 25 million more. Cash equivalent. Sign the new NDA, stricter clauses, ironclad, and disappear. New city. New name if you want it. Clean break. Blessing let the silence stretch until it hurt. Then she stepped closer, heels clicking sharp on the polished concrete. I already sent everything, she said. Voice low even. Metadata from the suite. Timestamped stills. A 10-second clip, Audio only, but enough. To my friend at Premium Times. The one who broke the last fuel subsidy scandal. He's waiting on my word to run it. Fatima's posture didn't change, but something in her eyes tightened, a muscle flickering at the corner of her mouth. You want the master file wiped? Blessing continued. Live. In front of me. And the names. All 7. No redactions. Fatima exhaled once, slow. You're playing a dangerous game. Blessing's laugh was short, dry. You think say na only una sabi play dirty? I be Lagos girl. I go drag this thing scatter, front page, Twitter threads everywhere, until even the ones way day hide go feel the heat. The air between them crackled, thick as the moment before thunder. Fatima's composure held for another heartbeat, then cracked, just a hairline fracture. She leaned in, voice dropping to a hiss. You don't enter where big men day play, Blessing. You know fit comet. Blessing met her eyes without flinching. The gallery lights caught the edge of her smile, cool and certain. Watch me. The words landed soft, final, like a door closing on someone else's house. Fatima said nothing more. But the silence between them had teeth now, and neither woman looked away. The borrowed penthouse on Victoria Island smelled of fresh paint and someone else's cologne, the kind expensive men wear to mask their fear. Blessing sat alone on the cream leather sectional, laptop balanced on her knees, the screen's blue light carving shadows under her eyes. 3 weeks had passed since the gallery in was, 3 weeks of encrypted messages, dead drops of proof, and one final ultimatum delivered through a burner phone that Fatima answered on the second ring. The link arrived at 11:04 p.m. No greeting. Just a secure URL and 4 words, *watch. Confirm. It ends, *. She clicked. A private video feed opened, clean interface, no branding. 7 thumbnail profiles loaded in a neat grid. Real faces. Real names beneath them. Senator Ibrahim Denjuma, eyes hooded behind rimless glasses. Ex-Governor Chukwuma Ease, caught mid-laugh in a campaign photo. 3 more ministers whose portfolios she recognized from headlines. 2 faceless godfathers whose names floated in Abuja whispers like smoke nobody dared inhale. Each thumbnail pulsed once when she hovered, then froze when she tapped. She started at the top. Confirm. The profile dissolved, pixels scattering like ash. Confirm. Another vanished. Her finger moved steady, mechanical, until the grid was empty. Only a black square remained in the center. A progress bar appeared beneath it. Master file overwrite in progress. Numbers ticked upward, 10%, 37%, 68%, until the bar filled green and the words flashed, *irrecoverable. Complete, *. The feed cut. Screen blank. Call ended without farewell. Blessing closed the laptop. The room went quieter than Lagos ever allowed, only the distant hum of traffic rising from below like a restless sea. She kept the money. Paid the hospital the final balance in one transfer that made the accountant stutter. Cleared the estate debts. Bought silence from the lawyer who'd once threatened foreclosure on her mother's old house in Surulere. Then she turned back to the camera. New photo shoots, bold Okoro prints against Lekki Ikoyi bridges at golden hour, against graffiti walls in Yaba, against the chrome of her new apartment's balcony rail. Captions short, loaded. What tried to break me built me, eyes wide open now, * they looked. I looked back, *. The final post went up at dawn. A single frame, black background, one red dot in the center, slowly fading to nothing. Caption beneath it, * seen. Not owned, *. She stepped onto the balcony. Dawn traffic crawled below, Danfos, Okadas, early morning hustlers already shouting. The city breathed, indifferent, alive. Blessing leaned on the railing, arms crossed against the cool morning air. She exhaled once, long, slow, the sound almost lost in the wind. No longer hunted. No longer hiding. Just changed. The unease settled deep in her chest now, not gone, never gone, just quieter. A scar worn like the thin gold chain at her throat, expensive, permanent hers. She looked out over Lagos, the sprawl glittering under first light, and for the first time in months felt the weight shift, not lifted, but carried on her own terms. The red dot was gone. But she still saw it when she closed her eyes.